Hi everyone, this is the first Prepper Story Hour, and we're sitting here with Southern Prepper fiction author Ron Foster. I'm your narrator, Pat Lambert, and we're just going to shoot the breeze a little with you, let you know a little background and what's going on with us. Ron, what got you into the writing books?
Oh, the question I love to hear, right?
Of course.
I was like, why does somebody drive a truck? I started writing books basically as a source of income, but I also want to share the preparedness message. And my background's emergency management, as you know, and the government spends millions of dollars trying to get people to prepare, and nobody prepares. 60% of emergency managers don't even have a bug out bag.
That's amazing.
And people are basically clueless except for the little FEMA thing like store water, do this, that, the other. I come off the perspective, let's start with nothing. And so I wrote the first book of stranding an emergency manager away from his bug out vehicle and his bug out bags 25 miles away and having to make it home 180 miles. And how can you wing it? And I guarantee you, most emergency managers can't do that. You would think if you had one living next door to you, he would know what to do, but he knows less than most preppers do on average.
That's kind of scary.
Oh, yeah. What about you? How'd you get into narrating?
Someone came up with some awful good storylines that I believed in and wanted to be a part of.
That's good. Yeah, I think we're going to enjoy this little journey, and when we start doing the editing, people see how it's created, and I think they'll have fun watching me. Sometimes I narrate to you and just start the story off the top of my head.
He does it from stream of consciousness, and it's like he gets going so fast. I'm like, okay, Ron, slow down. It's hard to keep up with him because it's flowing so fast.
Yeah, that's why I get these run-on sentences when I do because I don't type. A lot of people don't know that I do with one finger, but I get to go.
You sure do. And what's the most important part of your lifestyle? You actually get to live it, and you get your gear through a totally unique way, and it's informing people and teaching them to survive. What are we going to do next?
Truffle dogs are on my agenda if we get enough supporters. I think that's one of the coolest jobs I've come up with. Plus, it's profitable. It's a great thing for preppers. As preppers start doing the homestead thing, get back, you have to have a source of income. I can't think of a better source of income. Of course, I got my writing my book thing I do, but I don't wander around back of a truffle dog through an old pecan orchard. And if that's work, well, I can do that. That's pretty cool.
Everybody needs a dog.
Oh yeah, a dog that pays his own vet bills, feeds itself basically.
Yep.
Gives the master a little bit of money. Yeah, that'd be fun.
It sure would. There'd be quite some adventures. So, Prepper's Road March.
Yeah, that was my first book that I wrote about emergency manager. It's the first one you're going to narrate for him, and it's about an emergency manager goes up for a job interview in Atlanta, and the storm goes off while he's sitting in a restaurant doing this little after interview thing, and he's got to make it home 180 miles, and he meets some zany characters on the way. And I tell people some things. A lot of people, when they read the books, there's a lot of reviews on YouTube, etc. You can see. Like, I never thought about that because I like to say there's a ton of ladies' shoes on the highway out there because you can't be walking in them high heel soles. Keep you a decent pair of shoes in there,
Yeah.
in the car. That him not having his bug out bag, accessible to him.
Yeah, he's just got to wing it. That's one of your favorite sayings. The be prepared to lose everything but your mind.
Oh yeah. And I tell people how to, take a garbage bag, get water in the middle of the city, because the city's a desert. Uh, and the water's shut off. So you're walking down. How do you go and get water? Just plain old water. So most people don't even think of that.
Everyone's so into the phones and electronics has lost touch with what they need to do to survive. Just that's why we're kind of going back to the ways our parents and grandparents did it.
Oh yeah. With this technology, they're going to have self-driving cars and all this and that these days. And as everybody's going forward, I'm going backwards, trying to remember all the tips and tricks I learned when I was in the military or growing up, hunting, fishing or whatever. And, people need that. I mean, basic fire starting things. I still remember some of the funniest prepper things. Me and you would go to prepper meeting and watch people try to start fires, and I'd be lighting them for them half the darn time.
Spray them with WD-40.
Yeah, whatever they saw on YouTube that they hadn't tried till they got there, they should have tried it at home first or something.
Yeah.
And they forget the wood is wet or whatever. It's just amazing to me. I guarantee you they got an AR-15 or something in the trunk of their car.
Oh, yeah.
So I kid with them about being gun preppers, but if you don't have, you spend $500 on a bug out bag, you don't have $500 worth of food put back. Your priorities are messed up.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance to everything. Don't go overboard one way and make sure every base is covered.
Well, I mean, if you got a bug out bag and $500 worth of food, who has found? What are you gonna need? You're gonna need that $500 worth of food first, foremost, and always.
Exactly.
And that bug out bag, if you don't know what to do with it, then you put everything under creation. I know somebody else that used to do that. It's so heavy you can't carry the darn thing. Got something for everything. Like, where's the food and the clothes? So I mean, it's people don't have the proper idea what it takes like to live in the woods. I mean, you're better off walking around with knowledge to survive than anything you can put in that bag. You don't know what local plants that you can eat are.
Most people don't stop to really think about what it's like to be in that situation. You got to put yourself there and think of anything you might possibly need or what knowledge you need to add to be able to survive in those situations.
Yeah. And play with your gear.
Be familiar so you know what to do.
I mean, there was another thing I was watching at one of those prep fests we went to. There's Strike King. I forgot what the fire steel that you do one handed, and it's on a spring. They're pretty neat and all that. But you're watching that, they don't work or whatever, and hey, you're supposed to get the coating off the thing first, or
So many
whatever.
people don't know that.
Are they? I mean, I got gazillion fire skills, but I can't light fire with one.
Yep.
I think it's going to magically do whatever. Play with your stuff. Get familiar with your gear. If you got traps and snares you don't know how to do, you can't. That's not something you can go play with unless you're in a hunting area and you do your trapping and whatnot. But you can get at least familiar with what you're supposed to be doing with the thing. Look for animal trails and whatnot. They don't magically appear. Oh, I'm going to eat a raccoon.
Right, it's like you're not going to instantly know exactly what to do and know that your gear is going to function correctly.
Yep.
You need to practice and stay familiar with it.
And then you got a cheap knife, you find out real quick that you want a better one. Which most preppers, unfortunately, I'm bad about it myself. You end up with a gazillion knives till you find one, then there's always another one.
Yeah, I kind of like knives.
Yeah, we end up with this cool one from our sponsor, Silver Stag.
Yes.
That's about catch me out on that one. Now it's
Those are gorgeous.
double, yeah. So what gear did you end up dating prepper and whatever? You you end up with some cool gear, especially an altar.
Oh lordy, he's prepped me with everything from guns to staghorn knives, double sets that are useful for anything you need, uh, bird hooks, fish hooks, any kind of knife you can think of. I'm prepared.
I mean, and we play with stuff. And we good about messing with our garden. We've grown all kind, found out what works, what don't work. You know, unlike some people, I'll tell you when something screws up. You know, I remember we planted garlic. Well, we had a bunch all the way around the garden. You
And
know
they
what?
didn't do.
Yeah,
They
crazy.
grew great inside the garden, but when we tried to plant around the perimeter of the fence, they didn't do.
Yep.
You got to know your soil and know your area.
Yeah, because we're doing raised boxes, so we're building soil up in those boxes, and everybody with these cans of seed. It's kind of like on my high priority list to talk about them things, you know. I've seen
Yeah.
they put asparagus seed in a survival kit, you know, and the poor fool that's trying to grow it don't know it takes a couple of years, you know.
Yep. They're like, well, this isn't any good.
Or you
It
got
takes several
corn
years.
in the thing, and I've told you for the first time, you know, you hadn't planted. I said, if you don't have a ton of fertilizer, well, that's like the worst thing you can try to plant, and it takes so much to get so little out of it, you know.
Yeah, I didn't realize they took so many nutrients, plus there's only a few cobs per stalk.
Yeah. And you could add a tomato or anything else. Now, we're having fun with our goji berries. I put those in my bug out gardening, which basically, you know, we made our own miracle grow type thing. It's like, what do you got? You know, so I started the bucket brigade thing, where you put everything in a bucket and you can actually grow a garden somewhere, anywhere, because it's, I don't know what people's idea is that you just put a seed in the ground, it's going to grow, especially if you got messed up soil. This used to be a terraced farmland over here. They just played it out, you know.
Yeah.
And that land's so poor you can't raise a fuss on it, is what, how they call it, you know.
Yeah, you got to know your soil and what the local plants are, because there are a lot of wild edibles, the weeds and stuff. The disaster plaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my disaster plaster, well, my neighbor's going to not like that. Well, if it gets loose, but basically you take dandelion seeds and wild weeds.
Yeah.
And you get like a bazillion of them in that little strip of land or your lawn or whatever that's not going to do anything. Day one shit hit the fan, throw it out there, and weeds will grow when nothing else grows, and you'll be growing more food quicker, depending on weeds. Plus, you get used to seeing what the different stages of them are and recognize them and all that sort of thing, you know.
Right, you got to know your local edibles, and you can eat off of those while you're waiting for your crops to come in.
Oh yeah. Well, there's basically 13 that you can find anywhere, and it's like in my books. I'll pick one or two. We did smallpox one time, old cures, stuff that you don't normally see, or I'll talk about gruesome arts, you know, stuff that you can get by on. It's hard to kill or medicinal or whatever. You know?
And the herb gardens, they're so easy to grow, but like thyme is good for gunshot wounds. Get back to your basic herbals and the natural stuff, which is what the pharmaceutical industries are trying to make inaccessible.
No, that's, yeah, like wild lettuce. I mean, you want painkiller type thing. Basically, it's opium type, an opium alkaloid type situation, but it's not addictive. It's not this. It's not that. And people are finding a lot of alternatives to whatever it is that they're on or trying to avoid.
Yeah. Got to get everyone back to the natural.
Oh yeah. So out here we got all different kinds of mushrooms because Brent, one of the original mole boys up the road.
I love the Mo Boys.
Yeah. What do you call it? Chanterelles, etc. Out here, and he's showing me more about the wild mushrooms, which I always want to avoid things because previously. But there's
You got to know which ones are which.
oh yeah, I mean I'd go more for the greens or the nuts or berries or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But mushrooms are cool, and so we've been adding that, you know, more and more here lately. And then I got on the truffle dog trip, and then he's all on board with that. So we're going to end up with two of them. We were checking it out. We can also train things, and they have online courses. Worst case scenario, $265 will learn how to do it. And that includes truffle scent and a clicker thing that you train them with. And it's fascinating. It's like they train dogs to get find drugs or explosives or whatever.
Right, same thing.
Yeah, and the dogs working in like you know, dogs need a job. Certain breeds really need a job. You know.
Yeah, it helps them because dogs need a lot of attention. And they love having a purpose, just like people do.
Oh yeah, they want to please the master, and so that's the big dream. And I'm gonna carry that thing down to Panama City when we go down there. We might do preppers on the beach one day. We'll see what the response is. But I know a guy down there that's got a Labrador that dies for clams, and I'm gonna get my truffle dog around him and see if he wants to learn how to get clams and scallops for me.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
Yeah, I already put in. Well, my other book I put in on kayak limbo how you can trot. Not, well, it's kind of like a trot line basically. From you run 500-foot line out there and catch crabs. So I do things. I do the whole community type thing. Well, I guess that's a spoil for one of my books, but don't. Anyway, I come up with a way to like feed everybody that got stuck over on the island, that prepper meat type thing. And we had squirrel Armageddon using the whole big roll of picture wire that I happen to have, you know.
That was so creative, such a perfect idea. And that's what you got to do, because community is what it's going to take to survive.
Oh yeah, and you can't just worry about feeding yourself. You got to feed others too. And I tell everybody, it's like, you know, the gun preppers. I said, instead of talking about shooting everybody that's going to come get your last can of wheat, you better be figuring out how many your neighbor's going to take to plant that stuff and bust it in the ground up by hand. No society's ever existed without some kind of rain crop underlying it.
Exactly.
So that's the reconstruction, the rebuilding. You want to recover from disaster, get back to where you were. You're not going to, like, let's go on Mad Max here, you know.
Oh, we hope not.
You know, well, I mean, it's people's idea. What I've been through so many hurricanes, especially in the garden and whatnot. You know, I know how it actually is. You know,
Yeah.
people help each other most of the time. That's when they're on their best behavior majority of the time. And there's always fools out there and criminals that want to try to take advantage of the situation.
And the government's not going to be there. You got to depend on each other.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, in studying disasters, like Katrina, for example, it amazed me the media spin they put on. They didn't have all these rapes and murders and everything else in the damn after, but everybody believes they did. You know, it didn't happen, and then so they get days and days of broadcasting that mess, and then one day of retraction, but people still believe. People turn into mutant ninja bikers or something. You know.
Yep. It's amazing the propaganda they feed us.
Oh yeah. But see, long-term disaster. No, we don't have too many to study it like that. Argentina, of course, had the economic collapse. The one I like to use mostly in Serbia, you had ethnic cleansing. You had basically people trapped in the city with the war going on around the edges, divided factions shooting at people just because whatever religion or that they were. You had basically community neighborhoods banded together, and they fight with the other ones and whatnot. But that's interesting. But America's never experienced long-term disaster. A grid down situation nowadays. I mean, yeah, people can behave, but as soon as I put it, like I put in a lot of my books, as soon as everybody realizes that power is never coming back on, that's when it gets freaky.
Yeah, and people don't realize how close we are because of the politics and world banking system and George Soros trying to control everyone and make a new world order, we've got to get back to the basics and be self-sufficient so we can starve out the beast.
Yeah, and you gotta be, you don't have to pretend you're pioneer trying to start out a little town type situation. It takes the whole town to do it. You need the blacksmith, you need the general store, you need all this stuff.
So many of those talents are lost now because everyone's so involved in their phones.
Yep.
They don't understand the natural world or watching the rhythm of the seasons and the plantings and the animals. It's all lost.
All right. But okay, on the our end of the lake thing, which is a combination of the three prepper books and the trilogy, I put them all in one to try to save some people some bucks out here if they want to. Everybody had a job, and I come up with some of the weirdest jobs you can find, but they're all necessary. Like the one guy that just collected all the shoes, so if you needed shoes, you go to him. But otherwise, he didn't have a purpose.
Right. Thank God for variety because we can all be productive and useful in making community work.
Oh yeah, and then you pull together. You know, we invented our own form of currency. I've invented more forms of currency. I have. But, we've done sand dollars. We had stuff called Bernie bucks at one time,
Yeah, I love Bernie Bucks.
and so there is no money per se. And then we changed all the prices, which messed up everybody.
Yeah.
And with my background being a gemologist, and I'll tell you about right now, diamond's a bad investment. But you know, what is that? Are you going to trade me a diamond for food? No, I
No.
don't want it. You're going to think it's worth how much? I don't have a
Values
use for it.
values totally change in that kind of situation.
Yeah. So it's whatever we're trading, or you also have to have the promise you give your neighbor credit. Because, okay, you don't have anything to trade with you at the moment, but I got a hole in these digging next week that I'm going to go see that boy about. And, yeah, you can have some biscuits today or something, you know?
Yeah, working together.
Yeah. And then so all right, that was a trade, but, you know, he didn't have anything that very second. So,
Yeah.
you know, you got to depend on your neighbors, yourself, and then you can have stacks of silver, but, I mean, how much is a chicken worth? It's only worth what I can talk the guy out of things, tell me we want to do whatever, you know.
Right. And
I'd rather have a chicken. You know, and you got your 308 scoped out, wonderful gun, and I'd rather have a pellet gun. And you know, 1,000 rounds. Well, you can have a coffee can full of pellets. You know, it's lightweight. I'm gonna eat squirrels, this and that. What's the 308? Well, 308 is going to war. You're planning on going to war with your neighbor and this and that. Unless you're cannibal, you ain't eating them. That
Yeah.
308 is too big for shooting, you know, little birdies and whatnot. If you're in the city, okay, 22, get a pellet gun, you know?
yeah, get real about what actually is going to happen and what you can use.
Yeah. What's the right tool for the job?
Exactly.
You know, that's what we go into.
I always call you the MacGyver of prepping.
Well, appreciate that. You know, I come up with some stuff every once in a while. I still think our scooter idea is cool, you know. But I come up with that one to put them in the cars.
That would sure help me the older I'm getting.
Yeah, I'd rather have a pack on me and get on an old kick scooter when they gridlock. Especially, I was watching one today, like Canadian Prepper. They were showing the traffic in Los Angeles, right?
Oh, Lordy.
And it's gridlocked there all the time anyway. But let somebody try to escape an earthquake, whatever. Pop out of my truck with my little scooter and I'm zipping and zapping. You can laugh at what I look like all you want because I'm gonna be there first if there's anything at the end, resource wise, water, food. Here I go.
We got our packs and we're zipping between everyone.
Mm-hmm. And the whole thing folds up, fits in the kayak. You know, when we get there, so it's pretty cool. So you just keep thinking outside the box and repurposing things.
Right.
You know,
That's the way to go.
right. So we're going to read a little bit of a first chapter of Prepper Road March, and
That's the story that started it all.
carry on from there, and then go to Bug Out, and then we'll just keep throwing these up every month as we go. Pat lives like 80 miles one direction, and I'd go check out my mother in town, 50 miles the other direction, and we meet at Prepper Shack in the middle to do this. So hopefully we'll get a couple up, and then we'll always do more as we get on the roll. We're just starting out with this thing, so y'all bear with us and figure out the cameras and the technology and this and that's the other thing we got to do with it.
We got it going.
There we go.
Thank you all for joining us, and let's do a little reading here. Prepper's Road March by Ron Foster. Chapter 1. Grid Down. Ah, hell, David muttered to himself as he began trying to look around the room after the lights went out in the restaurant, just minutes after sitting down and receiving his menu. "Hey, Jack," he inquired of the shadow sitting next to him. "Have you been having brownouts in the city lately?" "Not that I know of," Jack responded. "But Atlanta always has some kind of shortage of infrastructure capacity and common sense going on," he grumbled. Jack was going to be David's new boss at FEMA, and after he had just passed the final interview process this morning, Jack was becoming his new emergency planner to the area by buying lunch for him and bringing along the area's section chief for an introduction. Blake, the area's section chief, was a grizzled old first sergeant from the Vietnam War that had retired from the Army and was soon to retire from his second career at FEMA. Me and Blake, I decided we were going to get along just fine, and it was he who had suggested this particular restaurant. Oh, I have trouble with Ron's laptop, and we got to get back to where we are here. With a sly wink toward my direction, that this place was his hangout and part of his way of getting to know folks in his command at the familiar environs of the bar attached to it. And, "Hello, do you like beer or whiskey as your poison of choice?" Blake asked me. "Don't need to ask me twice to help indulge in some adult beverages, but I best explain," I told him. "I have a bit of Native American in me, and although I love the whiskey, it doesn't love me." The last statement produced a loud guffaw from the old bar reveler. "David, you are all right. You know your limitations." David did look at me a bit comically evil and said, "I might test your limits later, though, with some good sour mash whiskey." "That would be Jack and Coke for me," I replied. But I protested to my new leader. "Hey, you're supposed to lead me away from my downfalls, not towards them," I say with a chuckle. He looked serious about this for a moment and said, "I need to see you at your worst, so I know if you will restrain yourself at your worst while still trying to do your best." Well, that's one subject I am not going to go there on, so I tried to direct the conversation to something else that showed my experience with alcohol, without any admissions to my possibly wavering ways or occasional wilder side tendencies that I learned the hard way to curb. He started eyeing my shoes and made some comment about needing a little touch-up polish. Damn, I thought, this old goomer had been pushing troops his whole life, should lighten up on the personal quizzing and inspection. He already knows every trick and excuse, but we aren't in this man's army, as I say, no more, and his scrutiny down to a boot inspection is not something an old seasoned trooper should have to endure. For those readers not familiar with the era of that last military basic training cycles of NOM, requiring a boot inspection, it is a degrading and necessary adaptation to military life that is at first experienced by those uninitiated soon after the point when you sign that first bit of paper that swears your allegiance to America and the Constitution, and that resolutely puts you in the Army for the duration of your enlistment. Everybody joins the military for their own reasons.
You can also use that arrow on the keyboard up and down. That's easy.
Yeah, I tend to forget about that. Everybody joins the military for their own reasons. I can summarize, based on my own experience, why everyone would do it now, and join up for the same economic hardships we faced then. A statement by one of my former drill sergeants regarding enlistments can be summarized as a quote. The number one understanding to relate to all reasons people enlist is, a bare ass, bare pockets, and a bare cupboard will put you in the military. I did it myself and remain proud that I signed on the dotted line, because I was a dumbass first, and foremost to the facts of real war, ignorant to the facts of life, and also needed the ultimate way out of my own then current situation, as so many others choose to do. But I digress. The reader really wants to know at this point what's up with the analogy of the marked boots thingy I mentioned. When you're a sorry trainee ass arrived at boot camp in my days, hippie era early 70s, you get eventually herded into a warehouse to get your basic issue in every branch of service. You get measured and rushed down a dizzying array of equipment and a line of folks throwing gear at you that you put into one of two duffel bags. One is for field equipment, one is for personal clothes under the idea of uniforms, including your civilian clothes, that you walked in with. When you go out the door, if you're a man, your head has been shaved to make everyone appear uniform, and you can't recognize anybody after that, including yourself. And now you're also carrying two 40-plus inch canvas or nylon bags, approximately 65 to 70 pounds each, of BS, that is, your gear and goods needed for this new career to account for, as well as the papers assigning it to you. At some time in this process of being herded about, you're told to grab one of your two pair of boots and put them on your feet that have been covered with your civilian shoes up to this point. Then you're told to step up on a wooden stool, face front, and allow someone to take a pencil eraser they dip in white gummy paint to apply it to the top of the boots you're now wearing. I wore black boots that you had to polish. Just keep in mind, times are changed now. 1 dot per boots for 2 reasons. You're too dumb to remember to change your boots every other day for hygiene purposes, and so the DI can get on your ass if you forget or try to cheat. I included this bit of reminiscing for those that think about signing up for the most eye-opening experience that you will ever have. Put some dots on your daily wear shoes, and then try to explain them to friends, without my ramble. You can't do it unless seen it, done it, been there. Let us get back up to the here and now, as some folks might say. After a moment or two of the restaurant's elevator music being shut down by the power outage, the normally subdued voices of the restaurant's patrons began to murmur loudly and inquisitively about what to do next. The normally helpful and subdued waiters and waitresses began to lose their cool amongst what was starting to look like a laser light show of little flashlights flipping back and forth across the room as they turned to respond to the next doofus customer loudly grousing about if the power would be back on soon. I don't think I should have to pay for this, etc. Blake was literally totally unperturbed about this and said, "Let's go out to the porch bar until this shit settles," as he flicked on a little photon light on his keyring to guide the way. Acknowledging this was the best idea we had heard all day, Jack and I made haste to follow the old first sergeant through the maze of tables and freaked out staff. The staff at this point was retreating towards the establishment's center bar to confer with the managers on what to do next, thus leaving the patrons in the dark, to their dismay, when we swung open the door to a bright sunlit tiki bar-looking affair on the back deck. "What's up, Sarge?" said an old NCO club manager, looking type as he was already mixing Blake's favorite potion of his Singapore sling. "Power's out," roared Blake, as he sidled up to the bar and started searching his pockets for one of those little cigars he hadn't seen in years. "David, this is our medic and bartender friend Bob. He will also answer to a few other names that you might hear before the night wears out." I grinned as these two old soldiers embraced, and noticed that Jack wasn't having any problem getting his drink without ordering it yet either. Bob extended his hand with an exaggerated gesture and said, "So you're the latest master of disaster going to work for Frickin' Frack?" dutifully eyeing Jack and Blake. "Yeah, that would be me," I admitted, then tried to ease my way into a more comfortable conversation after enduring a painful pause of scrutiny, while watching the twinkle in his eye as the side glance went to Top. I have seen that look before, I recollected, amongst the old mud-boot military cadre. It meant, "What do you really think of this recruit?" A quick nod by both my superiors and a slap on the back by Jack meant he is okay, and we settled down to enjoy our drinks in that camaraderie all except ex-servicemen share. "Have you ever been to Atlanta before?" Bob asked. In my general direction as he started to serve some more patrons, pouring in the side door to take advantage of our great idea to partake of adult beverages in the light of day. "Yes, I used to be a stockbroker up here a while back," I replied. "A legalized bookie, huh?" cried Bob with a laugh. "We got several kinds of those weasels that make their home here. Hey, Bill, come on and meet David," he exclaimed, pointing a finger in my direction. Bill was an Armani suit-wearing, manicured, stuck-up ass who I think bred in the gutters of the financial district of Bankhead, and that always seems to be some sort of inbred Atlanta lounge lizard there.
There used to be a stockbroker up there, so I'm writing from experience.
You say it so good I stumble over it some. Bill half-assed waved at me and then said something about not starting any shit to the bartender, who just smirked happily back, secure in his own domain and place in the city's pecking order. The bar had crisscrossed timbers for shade, and several ceiling fans lazily stirred the humidity, but it did not seem to be doing anything to help beat the 95-degree Georgia heat, so I loosened my tie and got out of my suit coat. Jack asked me if I had a long drive this morning coming in from Montgomery, Alabama. I replied, no, the trip was not too bad, because I missed a lot of the rush hour traffic during travel times. I reminded the group that I had a 10 o'clock appointment with them, so I had left at 6:30 a.m. to be on the safe side, and it took me about 3 hours to get into town. I remarked that I sure would like to see the power come back on so I could get something to eat, because I hadn't had the opportunity to munch anything today. Bob said I would hear the cash register cycle when it did, and shove some pretzels my way to tide me over. Meanwhile, I see his boss and what looks to be a bouncer waving him down from the corner, and he trotted off to their summons. I told Blake I was going to the restroom, if I could find it, and would give me some navigation directions. "You want to follow my light, David?" Sorry there. Come on, everything's freezing up. "No thanks, I got my own," and waved my keys back at him. "What the hell you got on that thing?" Jack exclaimed, as he was eyeing what evidently he thought was some kind of huge baffling mystery of accumulated keyring add-ons. I laughed and said I'd explain it all when I got back, but at the moment my back teeth were floating and I was in a hurry to recycle some of the beer that I had consumed with him and his partner's interview process. I wandered back into the restaurant, shining my light in front of me, and noticed they had raised what few shades there were, and that the front doors were open with quite a loud commotion of voices drifting in from outside. Lights were still out, so I didn't think bar fight or anything other than the restaurant and customers bitching about bills. I took care of my business, and was headed back out the door to rejoin my comrades, but got interested in what appeared to be a mob of people at the front door of the business just milling around. I need to go be noisy, I thought, and proceeded to check out what the fuss was about. As I neared the doors, I heard a hubbub of voices asking, what could cause a car not to work, and why are the cars stalled, etc. Then I got a sinking feeling as I exited the doors. Oh shit, Lord protect us, I thought, as I see disabled cars and the drivers psycho-babbling about frigging EMP. Now wait, it's not nuclear caused, well as near as I can tell at the moment. Sky's clear, no telltale mushroom cloud, etc. Think, man, think. Okay, radiation is not a worry for the moment. Maybe this is a natural event. Haven't I been repeating the warning that NASA already put out about solar storm cycles and CME events for years? Well, Merry Christmas. Your ass is stuck in the middle of the hell you predicted.